And we are live. Good afternoon, Internet world. Welcome. Thank you again for joining us for this Thursday's edition of Deering Live. We're really happy to have you here today. Joining us today, we'll cut straight to it, is the one and only Mr. Mark Johnson. Mark Johnson is commonly known as the founder of Clawgrass, which obviously incorporates bluegrass and clawhammer banjo styles. And along with Emery Lester, Mark was nominated by the IBMA, International Bluegrass Music Association, for the 2007 Instrumental Album of the Year Award. And then in 2012, Mark was presented with the Steve Martin Prize for Excellence in Banjo and Bluegrass. And he is a spokesman for the Deering Banjo Company, which has named 2 Clawgrass models after him. Most importantly, Mark is a friend of ours and an all-around awesome guy. And we're really happy and honored to have him on Deering Live today. Welcome, Mr. Mark Johnson. How are you?
Man, it's great to be here. I've been looking forward to working with you guys and to doing this cast here for everybody.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you here, man. So I think the last time we saw you was back in January. It was at the NAMM show in Anaheim, California, and you were due to come out here with Emery, but it didn't quite work out. But it was right around the time, you know, the COVID was just starting to make the news a little bit. And you've been pretty busy ever since then when you're not playing banjo. And for those in the world that don't know, tell us just really briefly, what is it that you do outside of your musicianship?
Well, I actually have a full-time career job working in the health, the Florida Department of Health up in Tallahassee. I work at county level, and we've been really busy for the last 5.5 months, working long hours in this national pandemic here with the populations, just trying to stem the tide with it. And when you guys called me up and invited me to come out and do this great Deering Live Zoom thing here, it was great. It's a way of getting away from it. But for the folks I got to mention, a lot of folks started calling me back in February and March to do lessons, and I want to apologize to a lot of people because we were working so hard in the national pandemic, the emergency, that I just couldn't do any training and teaching. But things are opening up a little bit more simply because I want to. I don't have, at some point I just got to be Mark Johnson again and play banjo.
Love it. So we got a lot to thank you for, my friend, and we appreciate all of your hard work on the front lines there. It's got to be crazy time. But I'm glad that you could join us and have some banjo time with us today. And we're also joined, we've got some noise in the background here. We're also joined a little bit by David Bandrasky, who's going to take over the proceedings.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, Mark, how you doing? Great to see you.
It's good to see you again, buddy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just let's dive right in. Why don't we kind of, in your words, describe what clawgrass is?
I've been asked that question for 2 decades now, and I finally get the opportunity again to talk about it. What Clawgrass is the title of the first album I ever recorded with the Rice brothers, with Tony Rice, Larry, Ronnie, and Wyatt Rice, and some other great friends of mine, Tuck Tucker, Tammy Murray, Jason Thomas, the great fiddler.
Wow.
And up to that point, I was working on night shift at a power utility out in Florida, and at lunch hour I would bring my banjo in and play, and with a buddy of mine with a guitar. And people would gather around. With some of the people that gathered around with the Rice family, Herb Rice and Ronnie Rice and Larry Rice.
Wow.
So coming home, I know. They brought me home, and then Tony moved back here in 1985 to Crystal River, Florida. And what happened, we recorded the album, and then it started getting out there, and all these magazine articles and radio interviews and all this stuff started happening. I didn't know the sound was that different. I thought I was playing old time, and what happened was it was such a different sound according to these people. They decided they didn't know what to call it, so they just named it after that album. That's how it happened.
That's terrific. It's a great story. But you do have a kind of a signature. Your sound is pretty. You can really pick out your sound clearly when I hear hear you're playing, I can tell that's Mark Johnson very quickly, and that's for every musician. That's kind of something you really strive for. So congratulations there. But
Thank you, David. That's a very humbling thing, and a lot of people have, over the years, people have just wrote me and says, when I hear you on Sirius XM, thank you, Sirius XM, or any of the radio station, they go, the first couple of notes, we know that's Mark Johnson and Emery Lester making their music together.
exactly.
And it's really an honor, and it's really humbling, too.
You get a real clear sound, for playing clawhammer, and it's a really, but it's super rich, but still very clear. And is there anything that you do, or just your nails that you do? You use fake nails, don't you use artificial nails?
Yeah, I get a couple of acrylic nails put on my fingers here, and I've been doing that for years. When I first started learning how to play the banjo, I actually took lessons from the great fiddler Jay Unger.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
John Cohen came in and demonstrated from the New Lost City Ramblers. This was up in Garrison, New
You're
York.
from New York originally, right?
Yeah, up on the river area. They're actually from Yorktown Heights, but I spent a lot of time bombing around over on the river over there.
Okay.
Where I started to learn how to basically frail a banjo. The first couple of lightning bolts had hit. The second set of lightning bolts that hit in the same spot were moving to Florida and meeting the Rice family and Tony Rice.
Right.
And Tony loved clawhammer,
Mm-hmm.
like the old timey sounds that
Right.
Just playing guitar in duet form. And but I couldn't just get in there and play the old note brush thumb old time stuff. In order to work with him, in a duet frame of mind, you have to be able to listen and understand what he was doing. So I had to kind of figure out my bluegrass side of my head, because I played Scruggs style. I had to start figuring out how to apply backup and playing counter melody and harmonies to what he was doing on the guitar. That's where I first learned how to do it. Him and Wyatt Rice too is another. Wyatt and I spent a lot of time together.
Right.
And I would listen to these guys play the guitar, and they would get all that beautiful air in between the notes. And I said, well, I'm not doing that with the note brush thumb thing. So I would actually sit down and work with it till I could get to a point where I could get that really neat note separation
Uh-huh.
to satisfy me. And as I was doing this, I used to think I was playing real old time music. And I went up to David Holt brought me up to Mount Airy one year. I was a guest of his, and he was doing filming with the North Carolina state. They were doing a film on the old time music up there. He said, "Why don't you go on, play some music, Mark? I'll meet you back here." And I went out and I started playing with something that was going on way down in the corner there. And when I started playing, people started folding their cases up and walking away. I didn't know what happened, so I went back and I sat down over there where David saw me. He comes back and goes, "What are you doing? You're still here?" And I told him what happened. He goes, "Oh, you went down. That's the preservation area down there, Mark. You don't play old time. You got your own sound." And I go, "Really?"
That's
And then
great.
Bob Carlin, and I was telling Bob Carlin the same thing, and he jumps in my lap. He's kidding. That's the first time I met that guy. He's breaking me up. And he didn't believe me at first. Then I played for him. He goes, "It is different." And that's how it all gets. It's all accidental.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. You you made the traditionalists run away.
Well, I didn't mean to do it. It was accidental, and I'm still apologizing for it. I love it. I mean, what they
Yeah.
do is just blows me away. But
Yeah.
I really learned from 9 years of Tony and Wyatt Rice's guitar playing. They're the only guitar players in the area.
I think
I started out on, so could have done worse, I guess.
I think it really comes across in your playing, because I mean Tony Rice is, the what you said, the air between the notes. Also, he does like some harmonic substitutions, and I think that influence, you can really hear it in your playing. You have like almost a Tony Rice, harmonic, conception on the banjo in a certain way.
What I captured out of that, David, was he has this way of letting his music breathe.
Right.
When it breathes like that, he's speaking that language. He had his own language that he'd
Right.
speak on the guitar. And when you can get to a point when you're playing your instrument where you can really speak your own language and not just playing songs, you really get your own sound. And being with him, they taught me how to do that. I don't read music. I have terrible vision issues. I'm blind in I have no central vision in one eye. But I have a good ear, evidently, and I would listen. And these guys would write songs, but they never write songs out. They would just create music. And that's why I learned to start creating my own music like that. And they would love it. They go, hey, let's try that. You know,
Right. Well, why don't you play something for us? Why don't you play Cold Frosty Morning for us and kind of let everybody hear some?
Emery Lester and I recorded this together. He's the other guy that really, really found Mark Johnson musically and really drew it out of me here. The guy's a genius. We did this recording. I'll play a little bit of it for you. Do it out of A modal tuning. And we kind of came up with our own intros to it to go.
Wow. It's great. Really great.
That's how I heard it. You know, I used to think that's how it was played, and then Emery got a hold of it and did the mandolin thing on it, just pulled the bone out of it. And, so much fun playing with a guy.
Yeah. I mean, what you're doing is, your traditional clawhammer has kind of a very repetitive, pattern to it. But you're really
it used to be that way. Traditional clawhammer was in support of fiddle music and
right.
dance music. It was a very collective sound. It's critical to it. And but when you were playing in duet form, like I did Emery Lester for the last 20 years, and back with Tony and Wyatt back in those days, you really got to figure out how to complement what they're doing. And you can't do that if you do like the basic, just old time no brush thumb, no brush thumb, no brush thumb.
Right.
And so I wound up moving past that, and doing a lot of emphasis on thumb stuff, just emphasizing like that, but also doing roll patterns. The bluegrass roll patterns were another thing that I when I was playing with Tony and Emery all the time. You can apply those roll patterns, and all of a sudden the music just starts really filling out larger. And I'm not doing anything different from what old time people are, but I'm reapplying it in different time signatures. And another thing about playing in duet, but also playing in full ensemble, like with a bluegrass band. Bluegrass is newgrass, new acoustic, all the variations, clawgrass.
Right.
It's very complicated stuff. You have to really listen to who you're playing with and understand how do you play your clawhammer banjo against different instruments, with other instruments or other vocalists. And the whole point is to make whoever's stepping up into that microphone sound as good as they can sound.
Right.
That means just backing off, and like for instance, when we play backup, a mandolin player's job in a full ensemble like that is to carry the beat, the bass player, and do a backbeat. So when the mandolin player steps up to take a break, you're not going to be playing along, getting in the way of him, because those are treble instruments.
Right.
So you just do it like I would just kind of mute my fingers like this and give him a backbeat. You do
like the bluegrass, chuck,
Yeah, it's a chop.
Yeah.
It's a mandolin shop, but I'm
Right.
on
Right.
a
Right.
video. And you have to really think about how to apply. You have to listen to what's going on. Sometimes you can play too loud, or maybe it's not working, so you back out. Sometimes you just don't play and just come right back in again.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all about listening to everybody and contributing to the one person who's up in that microphone, making them sound as good as possible. And
Mm-hmm.
I brought that to the thinking too, and that's pretty much the what the Rices taught me.
Yeah. What are some things that you do? Let's say you're playing in an ensemble. What would you be doing for backup if there's a mandolin playing when you're not doing the chop, but you're doing something else?
Well, it depends. If it's like if you're playing a simple like a fiddle tune,
Yeah, if you're playing a straight traditional fiddle tune.
what do we do? We'll play Angelina Baker. That's fine.
Sure.
You know what the groove is in music. You know, when
Mm-hmm.
a band gets going in a groove and the timing's just right, and
Oh, yeah.
the rhythm's just right, and everybody's just looking at each other laughing, going, man, it's just so natural to play it like that. So on Angelina Baker, you got the melody. Let's say the mandolin player, tune this up here. Say the mandolin player is on the lead.
Yep.
He'll come in on the first part of that, and on the second part, we'll have a prearranged where I come in and play a harmony. I go. Play right behind his lead on the melody
You're
there.
kind of doing like a counterpoint line underneath
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
Doing counter melody, counterpoint.
Right.
And a lot of times that'll be like a creative decision that's made. One of the things I learned from Tony Rice and Emery and Tim Stafford's another one.
Uh-huh.
Sammy Sheeler and Jens Kruger, these guys is when you're playing like this, it's the 5 T's, the taste, touch, tone, timing, and tuning. And you can live your entire musical career, life,
Mm-hmm.
pursuing those 5 T's. And that's, I think, one of the things I really kind of, whether I was realizing it at the time or not, how I started developing my sound was messing with those 5 T's. Tim Stafford's got a great discussion on it out there. He put some publication on it. But pulling tone.
Mm-hmm.
Tone is a huge thing. I'll show you an example of how to pull tone. And also letting your music breathe. That's something Tony taught me early on, was letting that music breathe, where you can deal with that space in between the notes, where the most beautiful music resides.
Right.
I think. This is the old tune Seneca Square Dance was done down in the key of G.
Okay.
But Emily and I took it and we moved it up in the key of E, double E, because it voiced for us.
Right.
When you pull tone like that and play it slow, like a.
Yeah, yeah. So when you're, I mean, you know that tune very well. So in your mind, at when you're playing, are you focusing most of your mental energy on tone at that time?
Yeah, sometimes there have been times where I've gotten on stage and I've kicked it off a little too fast,
Uh-huh.
and Emery will just go over and give me the look, and just bring it down gradually, just bring it back down again. You know, that's one thing that banjo players are we're all guilty of it sometimes,
Right,
speeding up or playing
right.
too fast. You know, you don't have to play fast. You don't have to play fast at all. Banjos can be absolutely gorgeous standalone instruments that, in their own right, you can create some really cool music.
Yeah, I mean, you play some really, you really showcase that well, playing some really, slow tunes that really have a lot of emotional energy in them. You want to listen to one of your recordings?
Yeah, yeah. Try surprise me.
Yeah. How about Eileen O'Neill?
That'd be great. That'd be great.
And that Eileen, this is an original tune that you wrote?
Yeah, it's one for my mother. She passed away back in '11, and she's the reason why.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah. So what were you saying? You wrote that for your mother after she passed?
Yeah, well, actually, I wrote it before she passed, and I was able to play it for her at a nursing home, and it was just a real good moment. And I remember running it past some friends of mine. Miss Christie was a friend of mine. She heard it, and she go, "Oh, that's a good one, like that." You know? But it just came out. That's when the Rices were writing their own music. I would watch how they would do it and how they would express it, and then I just followed their lead. You know, years later, I've been doing it ever since. I'm just putting out music together. It kind of pops out, and it's emotive. The banjo can stand alone. That piece right there was recorded with Emery doing that really tasteful guitar work
Mm-hmm.
down behind it there. And, you know, that's what we like to do.
Yeah.
We don't go out and do albums because we want to be commercial about it. We do it because we just love doing it, and that's been most fun.
So what's kind of, how do you go about your compositional process? Do you just kind of take the banjo and find a melody that kind of comes into your head and then work with
It's as
it?
simple as that, and that one came to me probably within 10 minutes, that quick.
Wow.
And then
Like
I
one of
played it
those.
for Emery, and we recorded it just alone on the banjo. And then Emery took it home with him to his studio. And he goes, "I have a surprise for you." and then he played it for me. You know, George Hotchkiss was another great friend. He's the guy that recorded all of us over
Uh-huh.
many years. He's an amazing sound engineer friend with his wife Jackie up there in Front Royal area of Virginia, Page Valley. And we've, you know, ever since 2003, we've been capturing music at that house up there. A lot of times I'd wake up early in the morning and I'd be out on the porch just quietly, like Hotchkiss Hill, that's what we called it. Wrote a tune called Hotchkiss Hill, and I remember George coming down in his pajamas in the morning, and Emery with his man, he goes, "Let's go capture that one right now."
Wow. Yeah.
Just really, really neat idea, neat experiences.
So, let's see. So, when is there a difference when you're playing behind in a duet format with Emery? Because when you're playing behind him when he's playing guitar versus when he's playing mandolin, because when it's just the two of you and it's just banjo and mandolin, I mean those are two trebly instruments, but you're both getting this, and it's just the two of you, you know, and you're both filling out this space, this huge space. Is there anything you want to talk about that there?
Emery would we'd play a tune called Fisher's Hornpipe.
Uh-huh.
In our shows that we do, we'd stack at the end of a set, or we'd put it sometimes we do it as an encore, which
Uh-huh.
really features Emery tearing the bone out of playing Fisher's Hornpipe. And I get to play along with him. And it goes, you know, the melody's like, those are those roll patterns. So the backup to him, we go. I take a lead, I go. Back to the backup.
Yeah,
We just swap it back and forth, kind of talking to each other in a way when we do that.
that's great. Why don't we take a listen to it real quickly so we can hear it in action?
Yeah, fire away.
Yeah, that sounds great. That's the
When I hear him playing, you couldn't slap the smile off my face.
that was, yeah. One thing that I noticed too is that, you know, that's a real popular tune to be playing, and a lot of people will play that, you know, just jamming. But it doesn't sound like you two are just jamming. It doesn't. It sounds like you sound like a band. You know, you sound like it's a sounds like something that should be recorded, not that you just turned on a tape recorder and just said, "Let's play Fisher's Hornpipe."
Yeah, we're actually talking to each other, like when we're going back and forth music.
Uh-huh.
And we'll sit there and look at each other, start smiling and laughing, because we know when we switch it up and we'll try something new in the middle of it there, he'll just look up and smile, or I'll catch something he does. He'll get up in those tiny little frets way up above.
Mm-hmm.
The last few frets on a mandolin, start nailing it as clean as a bell. Playing music is for musicians, for all you folks out there listening, it's just something y'all can do. And playing clawhammer banjo, y'all can do it. And anywhere you want to take it, you can do it. The musicians that are out there now, and the ability to learn off of things that are on the YouTube and the net, we didn't have that when I was starting out. Heck, I used to watch the Beverly Hillbillies and try to figure out what Scruggs was doing on the Beverly Hillbillies, the black and whites,
Mm-hmm.
We just had to figure that sound out ourselves, and I think that's what happened with me. Is I just had my own idea, and I thought I was playing a certain type of music, and I wasn't. I was just creating my own music.
Right.
But the tools that are available today, the musicianship is amazing. And, I take my hat off to a lot of clawhammer players out there and bluegrass players. Sammy Shield is one of my heroes.
And do you have any recommendations for people at home that, if they, they play with a friend or something, to try to build that interaction where we're really speaking to each other?
Yeah, timing. Play slow. You can't. Scruggs has quoted once as saying, "You can't play fast unless you can play slow." Right.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with playing clawhammer, you want some melody. I'm a melody guy.
Right.
A melody guy. Tony's a melody guy. Sammy Shield is a melody guy. He's a timing guy too. His timing is just to die for. But I would say when two people sit down to play some music, learn the way it was done. One thing I would divert from the way I went about it, but learn the original version of the songs. And then as you get better, start learning to define your own sound. And one of the things I teach a lot, and we did Happy Trom's another buddy of mine, we did a homespun tape up there. It was clawhammer for bluegrass banjo players.
Mm-hmm.
And start teaching licks, like I'm in double tuning here, right?
Okay. Double C tuning.
Double D tuning.
Double T.
Cheater bar.
Right, with the capo on it, yeah.
Always checking the tuning on it, Darren. So, triplets.
Yeah.
Triplets are fun. Another one.
Nice. Is there a specific exercise or anything to do that you recommend?
I teach it. It's not
Yeah.
something you just kind of talk about, but
Yeah.
a lot of times I start off the fifth string.
Okay. Yeah.
And a lot of times old time players don't understand that thumb on the fifth string is the first note.
Right.
When I was talking with Steve Martin years ago, back in '09, he flew me up to New York City and invited me to his house for dinner and for lessons. The guy flew me into New York City for lessons. And I showed him this lick, this triplet lick. All of a sudden, the smile went like this. I just couldn't stop. I was going nuts over it. It was fun to watch him. I love teaching. I love watching the light bulb go on top of
Right.
your head when it goes off. I go, oh, I get it.
Right.
So you can really go even higher off the second string. further on the way because he kicks the darn thing off when he wrote there with that open.
You used your lick. All right.
He's just an amazing human being.
Yeah. So how is it kind of working with Steve Martin?
Well, when we were back doing it, I mean, you know, he was a great banjo player when he invited me up there.
Mm-hmm.
Just showed him a few things that I do, and he was. One thing I noticed, I was playing Down to the River to Pray. He asked me to play that,
Right.
And he was watching the left hand. A lot of banjo players do that. They watch the left hand because they think it's all up there.
Right.
And then he goes, Mark, it's all in your right hand.
Right.
And it is. It's all in. All you players out there, that sound you're getting comes out of your right hand. It's how you create that sound right there. So when you start really understanding how to really space your notes out and how to really separate them and work with that timing, where you work with that tension, like
Mm-hmm.
that's tension because it's out of tune. Jens Kruger does a great discussion on tension and release. I mean, he's the king of it. You know? So, Down to the River to Pray.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, that's great. One thing you do often, and we haven't talked about, is your use of dynamics. And musicians of all kinds, don't use it enough. It's one of the easier things to use. Why don't you? But banjoists are really, really have that problem. Why don't you talk about the importance of dynamics a little bit?
That falls into that discussion on taste, touch, tone, timing, and tuning.
Uh-huh.
Is dynamics. I think it falls into the taste and touch portion of it, where you're working with volume,
Mm-hmm.
in and out, making emphasis. When you're playing for people, when you're recording, but especially when you're in front of a crowd of people, if you play, I found out that if I play too much of the same thing over and over again, I mean, you're within the realm of the melody of the song, and you're working
Mm-hmm.
with your counterpart, whoever you're playing with. When it comes time to take a break or a lead, what I like to do is when I start incorporating dynamics in volume and snapping notes and snapping bass strings and things like that, the crowd will go, the human ear just goes, what was that? They listen even harder.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the whole gist behind playing dynamically is expression,
Right.
speaking your language, but speaking the language where other people understand it is part of that communication thing.
Right.
I don't know how to describe it other than that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to shout at people all the time. You need to.
Back when I was learning to play bluegrass, I shouted at the people all the time.
Right.
On the banjo, and throwing the kids. Just another thing. You don't want to, every note you got, everything you can do. Young players, when they really start crossing those thresholds and start learning
Hmm.
and how to play, they're throwing. They go take a break. They throw the kitchen sink in there. They throw everything they know how to
Right.
play.
Right.
And I think that's just a question of musical maturity
Right.
that we all
Right.
have to go through.
Yep.
And it's a cool thing they actually do until somebody says, "Hey, you know what? You're overdoing it."
Right.
And you learn, you pick up on it. You go, okay.
Right. If you're cooking, you don't want to put every spice that's in your spice cabinet in every meal.
Get pretty gummy.
Yeah, it gets a little. Why don't we talk about your banjo some?
Sure.
What one are you holding right there?
This is the prototype. This is the Mark Johnson Deering Clawgrass model banjo that was created for me back in 2006.
Hmm.
Greg and Barry Hahn, when he was working out there, and all the artisans that were working at the time for Deering. Greg even did the carved heel on it. You can see all that.
Wow,
And
beautiful.
It's got. He said a Northern California walnut, gorgeous neck. The Clawgrass banjo has a little wider neck.
Uh-huh.
To be able to play up, and it's a speed neck too. It's a real fast neck behind here. So when you get up on the neck, there's a little wider. You can drop your fingers in and thumb it out. Some of the old Gibson necks are a little too narrow for that. So
You like that wider neck for your right hand, not for your left hand.
for your right hand, exactly. And it's got the wood. It's a walnut. This is Northern California walnut, which is a bright sounding wood. It's got the '06 tone ring in it
Uh-huh.
in the back here. And
Looks like you have a pickup.
Perez, I had Tony Perez, the great tone guard maker out there in the United States. He made this tone guard. The first one he made for me, I gave to Steve Martin.
Okay.
Steve bought the first full prototype one Clawgrass model banjo, and then Kevin Nealon bought one and was showing him some stuff too. But when I gave it away, he made me this one with my initials on it. There's a little electric plug back here. When I want to heat it up, I can cook hamburgers at the Bluegrass Festival. I get my initials right into them like that. And it's got all this, gun engraving. I don't know if you can see this thing. A lot of it's getting kind of worn, but all the metal is gun engraved. And does that make you play any better? No. It looks good with a pair of jeans, though. That's what I like. So I got with Greg and Janet. Oh God, it was back in 13 or 14, and all my students were saying, "I want to get that sound that you're playing there. I want to get that sound," and but they can't afford it because this is a pretty high-end banjo. It's one of the type banjos. So Greg and Janet, Greg in particular, came up with this. We created the Clawgrass #2 banjo.
Right.
See the logo on it there, and it's the same banjo, but just without all the heel carving. And that's got real mother of pearl in it. This has got a different material, but it's the same inlay pattern.
Uh-huh.
The gorgeous Gabriella inlay pattern. It sounds. In fact, when we got these banjos, Emery and I were touring Europe. We toured 5 countries. Our great friend Paolo Detweiler out there in Switzerland did this amazing tour for us and just set it up. And the banjos showed up about a week before we left. These things didn't even know they were banjos yet. And I took them on tour, and they're so new. It smells green, like that. And but man, they just performed. I took 2. I always play with two banjos. This is serial #1. I've got serial #2, and they just got great sound to them, and they're more affordable.
You always travel with 2 banjos, you're saying?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you
Simply because we play in so many different tunings.
for different tunings, right?
Yeah. Tuning's bad enough on stage with me, but if I was trying to get all out of one banjo, I'd be like, what a nightmare.
So what are some of the tunings you use? You use standard G, you use double C, and use sawmill. We've talked a little about. What else do you use?
Oh, I can show you. There's a bunch more. Let's see. A fun one, a really cool one. In D tuning like this, if you take your first, you get in double D to double C tuning and capo it up to double D. You go on to your first string and take it up just a half step. This is what it sounds like without it. first string up a half step.
Okay.
Open
Weird.
E minor tuning.
Right.
And if you take the capo off, you're open C minor. If you put the capo up on the 4th fret, it's open E minor tuning.
Right. Right.
So like pretty poly.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Haunting sound out of it, you know.
Yeah.
There's some fun stuff down those lower notes.
Using octaves kind of there?
Say it again.
Are you using octaves there? Is that what you're doing, kind of? You're doing,
Pretty sounds.
yeah.
Uh, intervals, probably.
Yeah, yeah.
That's another one.
Wow. That's great. I've got to try that. I don't think I've been really messed with that tuning much.
There's an even cooler one here. Let me show you another one. Oh, my cat has taken up the space on my music stand. This is the old, this is the first one, the first banjo that I got with the Deerings when I started with them back in 1996. I was working with the Rice Brothers. Tony invited me up as a guest, Earl Fest. And we were on the hillside stage there, and he brought me up and we were doing our stuff. And I remember I had met John Hartford before that. He came over to the stage and he pulled on my pant leg up on that high stage there. And he said, "Hey, I found your banjo, come on with me." So he brings me over to the tent where Greg and Janet Deering, I'd not met them yet. And this banjo was sitting on a stand there. I'm not sure what happened. It was made for somebody. They didn't pick it up, and I fell in love with it. And they made me a deal I couldn't refuse, and for all the publicity and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
This one's an Ivanhoe. This is an Ivanhoe banjo. If you play in standard tuning to go to your minor tunings, you just take your second string down a half step.
Right.
So in Jerusalem Ridge,
Yeah. Wow, that's sounds great. Again,
There's an even cooler thing is when Emery and I are playing that thing, he's doing it on the mandolin. There's a backup of one of those counter melodies. Like
right.
he'll kick it off on the melody again, and I'll go. Backup.
Yeah. When you're playing backup, do you kind of play on the lower three strings a little and kind of stay away from the
Yeah.
the top string a little more?
Yeah, I think yeah, because the top strings are real trebly, and then I
Right.
kind of get into their realm, especially with mandolin. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when you got a mandolin and a banjo up there, they're both trebly.
Right.
So being able to get out of his way, what I just with memory, I stay down in the low echelons there and just try to listen. I'm constantly listening to what he's doing and he listens to what I'm doing, and it's become like a language after all these
Right.
years. We know how to that synergy's there. You know, we know how to work with each other.
I think that's definitely the key is what you just said, those when playing with others is listening. Wouldn't you
Well,
agree?
that's what Tony Rice taught me.
Yeah.
He would invite me down to his house in Crystal River for years on end on Friday nights, and we would sit there and listen to all kinds of music,
Mm-hmm.
Bill Robeson jazz stuff, Ornette Coleman,
Mm-hmm.
J.D. Crowe. You know,
Right.
one day he goes, "Okay, I want you to listen to this and tell me what you hear." And it was a recording of J.D. Crowe just by himself playing colored aristocracy on the five-string banjo bluegrass style.
Wow.
And when I listened to it, I could hear I could hear him. I heard him breathing at one point, and I sensed what he was going when he was breathing, how he was touching his back up. I heard him when he. I heard just a couple of finger squeaks on there, but I was really listening to the tone he was pulling. And at
Mm-hmm.
the very end, I heard him sit back in the chair and just creak the chair really quietly like that. And Tony goes, "Okay, get your banjo out."
That's
And
great.
we started messing around. We recorded on that old Clawgrass album. We recorded "Colored Aristocracy" together, and "Fork and Deer,"
Yeah.
John Henry, and then a version of the old "Home Sweet Home" revisited
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry.
Drugs.
It was actually Ricky Skaggs, Crow. I think it was the album band with Tony.
Oh yeah, the
That was a
Bluegrass
long
album
time
band.
ago. It's the one with
Yeah.
the wall in the front there. Like I said, Bobby Sloan was on it. And it's Home Sweet Home revisited with Crow, and we turned it into an instrumental. And he took his most amazing break on it. It was most emotive break, and it's just that was the exciting thing about it. It still is. I still get charged off it.
That's a great lesson for people to, listen when they're to practice listening when they're just at home listening to music, to listen beyond just the top level, what they hear, just really, really focus.
Sammy Sheeler's got a great discussion on it. The YouTube we did actually. It was a workshop we were doing down at Mitch Lynn's festival down in Polk City. Hey Mitch, hey Bill Blue, all you guys out there. But Sammy talks about working with a drum machine. That's another thing that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And he would take a beat and almost separate one beat into 10 increments. And that guy got so accurate at nailing that beat and controlling where that feel was in that whole
Mm-hmm.
song. And Mitch has been getting us together at that festival, the second and the third Steve Martin winners. We did this little double banjo thing down there. We always do this one tune that we did off the Hurricanes of Danger album, a tune I wrote called "Move Along," and Sammy did. And we look at each other just laughing while we're so much fun.
That's great. So we have some questions from some customers that I'd like to get to too. Um, here's a question from Tony Prevo, and he's wondering what instructional materials are available for clawgrass style.
Hey Tony, Mark Johnson here. Probably the best one that we did was with a Happy Traum at Homespun. It's got Clawgrass, Banjo. The title of it's Bluegrass, or Clawhammer Banjo for Bluegrass Banjo players. But I've got Emery working with me on it, and Happy's interviewing me on it. And we go into a lot of the technique and things. So I would recommend that right off the bat. But I would also recommend just listening. Get the music and listen to what we're doing and see if it appeals to you. Listen hard. Listen to how I play a lot of licks. I'd love to get out and do another DVD on just playing licks like you do in bluegrass, but you do them in clawhammer too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would recommend that for starters. And once you get that, I've got a really detailed, if you get it, I've got a really detailed handout I'll email to anybody who wants it that gets one of those DVDs. It really explains what's going on.
Great.
Does that help?
Yeah, definitely. Here's a question from Gregory Smith. Is there a reason to use a first finger along with a middle finger in the right hand other than economy of movement? Are there patterns that you cannot be played middle thumb, and require middle thumb, index thumb?
Greg, you asked the best question of yet so far. I'll tell you, let me get a different banjo here and I'll show you.
Okay.
He's talking about roll patterns. Get into roll patterns.
Mark, I think he froze up just a little
In
bit.
that handout that comes with that DVD, what I do is it talks about roll patterns. And it's a kind of a foundational building thing. You learn how to frail. Frailing is critical. Just brush, thumb, because some of the most advanced stuff up the neck you'll be frailing. And then you go to the note brush. I remember, that's the standard old time stuff. And then you drop thumb, the 1, 2, 1, 5. I have exercises for that, but it's the roll patterns, the 2, 3, 1, 5. I didn't create these. This is just reapplying an old sound, right? So a forward pattern like in bluegrass. I'm finger picking on that. So in a roll pattern. And Greg, you talked about the right thing about economy of movement. If the melody moves towards the higher strings, the middle finger takes over on the melody. So I'm playing really 3-finger clawhammer. And those roll patterns are a great way to practice doing that sort of stuff. So if you're an old time player and you want to just expand out a little bit and try going towards a melody in a different way, this is a great way to give it a try. And slow it down. That's another thing. When you slow down, it forces you to deal with that space in between the notes. And that's where you really start focusing on timing and what you got to work on, or if you got it naturally. And
Got it.
I hope that answers it.
Yeah. We have a little technical issue where the video is frozen, but we can still hear you, Mark. But do we have any questions writing in on the live stream?
Yeah, we do actually. We have a few. Yeah, Mark, we're just trying to fix that video thing, but if you want to maybe stop the video and restart it on your end, hopefully we can get you back on there. But here's a couple of questions for you. Hillary West. Oh, by the way, I should mention, there's some good friends of yours. Apparently there's a wonderful couple who thank you for being their best man 40 years ago at their wedding, I believe.
Who's this?
I have to pull it up in a minute. Beautiful though. There's such a lot of friends tuning in to see you, Mark. It's really cool to see.
Oh, that's exciting. I think I've been best man several times, but I think I know who this might be. They live down in Florida here.
Yes.
Hope so.
Yes.
Maybe not. Maybe they'll give us their names.
I can pull it up in just a second. Ron and Connie say hi as well. I believe they're just
Oh my goodness.
they're local to you. But in the meantime, yeah, Hillary West asks, Mark, how have you been involving your music from the beginning to now? and how has working with Emery had an impact on how your music has evolved over time?
Well, Hillary has kind of been a witness to most of it. We're old friends. We go back a long ways at IBMA up there, and she's really she's been one of our closest friends and confidants. And so when I tell everybody here that, of course, when I met the Rice family, that was amazing. But I also met Bill Emerson. Bill Emerson took me under his wing too, and the great bluegrass banjo. And there's a couple times we got together at Mr. B's up in Massaponax, Virginia. This is years ago. I had the most loud, ugly shirt you could imagine. It was a bluegrass shirt, what it was.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Emery says, Mark, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. He's our mandolin player, and he thinks musically like you do. And you got to understand, Bill just come out of the Navy as just came out of the Navy as a 20-year Navy chief, and he started the Country Currents Bluegrass Band. And he goes, I want to get you and Emery together. So we had this. Emery was living on a mountaintop up in Front Royal, and drove up to meet him with a buddy of mine named John West, and it was magic. And Emery's dad was there. Jake Lester, the great banjo player, used to run around with Eddie Adcock. And those guys just made me feel like what I was doing mattered. And we started, I remember I was going through some tough times at the time there, and Emery tricked me into going into the studio. He was recording his Cruising the Eights album with George Hotchkiss down there in Browntown, Virginia. And we got in the studio, he goes, let's see what that banjo sounds like. And he got like great Neumann mics up and stuff. And by the end of the day, we'd laid down 5 or 6 tracks of our first album, Acoustic Campaign.
Wow.
So I would say that Emery Lester is probably a large part of the reason why I am who I am musically.
And a gentleman he is as well. I met him a few times now over the years, and it's just an absolute gem of a man. So couldn't ask for a better partnership, really. Hillary also wants to know, have you been writing these days, especially during the pandemic? And has that added any creativity? I know that we've spoken to a number of people and artists and musicians who have kind of really taken this time to explore maybe some different avenues. How has the pandemic setting for you outside of just being extremely busy at work?
Work has consumed me, but I find myself coming home and just kind of emoting a little bit on the banjo because it's been such a crazy time. Got one here I'm working on for a friend of mine out in Colorado, Fred Eichler Jr. It goes like I'll play a little bit for you. Is that okay?
Hey, Mark. Before you start that, I canceled your video. Would you mind just seeing if you can turn that back on? I know this is live, but it would be great to kind of see if we can wrap up.
Right now.
Okay, cool. Off you go then. I'll leave it to you. Thanks, Brian.
Am I back?
Not yet. But carry on, and when you're back, you're back. It's okay.
Okay, sure.
Yep.
Ideas like that is another one.
Yeah.
Slowing it down, I'll play one for you. Ideas like that come out all the time. I've got myself
Beautiful.
a little Zoom recorder now. I'm trying to capture this stuff instead of trying to memorize it.
The trusty Zoom recorder. Yeah.
I'll say this, Emery and I were supposed to be in the studios in March this year. And of course, the whole, worldwide pandemic hit, and
Yeah.
I didn't get up to Canada at all. But
Yeah.
we will get there.
We will get there. We will absolutely will get there. Okay, I have a couple more questions, and we're kind of at the top of the hour, and then a musical request, if possible. But first, Stan Wilbur, he says, I want to transition from Scrug style to picking clawgrass. Where do I start? And I'm sure he's not the only one who's thinking that as well. So
on the same banjo stand. If you want to transition what was the question again, real quick?
He wants to transition from Scruggs style picking to clawgrass. Where do I start?
Okay, so gosh, start with me. Now, I can, if you're talking about learning how to do this stuff separate, or are you talking about playing three fingerstyle and going clawhammer at in the same song? I can do that stuff too.
Yeah.
But the first thing you do is you play with a melody you already know, like we get another banjo here. It's like Fireball Mail. What I'll do is if I start retuning again, we'll try and do it up in the key of A, just so I don't have to retune, because I know time is precious here.
No, we're good.
And I
We're good.
appreciate Mr. Stan. I saw him out at IBMA.
Right now, everyone's getting to look at my pretty face, unfortunately, or not so pretty face. So because they can't see you. No, we haven't got you back yet.
You get basic strokes like that, you go. Or Clinch Mountain backstep, the even better one. On Clinch Mountain, I play it in A modal. Ralph just would hold that string down there, but if you go up into modal, you get the value of that open string, Stanley. So try this. So that's another way of going at it. But email me or reach out, get that DVD.
Yeah.
Shamelessly pushing the DVD up there, but that's a great way to get started. And then we'll open up a conversation on email, and I'll send you that book. How about that? I hope that answers the question.
That sounds good. That sounds good. And your video looks like it's trying desperately to come back in. So we'll see if that's no, you're okay. It's okay. Some things we beyond our control. As the ukulele grandpa just pointed out, the live talks highlight that you are a banjo company and not a music production company. You're not wrong. We are a banjo company, but we're trying. We have to do something in this crazy, crazy time that we're living in, and we're getting better. So thank you for your patience. Diane and Stan, by the way, was the couple. With
yes.
you. Yep. They say hi.
Friends up in the New York area.
Yes, that's correct. Absolutely. Very cool. David, do you have anything else that you want to bring back in before we sign off for the week?
I have one last question from a customer, Gregory Smith. He was wondering, what banjo did you use to record Waiting for the Federals on your 1863 album? Was it a tubaphone?
No, that was the prototype. That was the Clawgrass, the first #1 Clawgrass model banjo. And again, we capoed up. I used a capo in double D tuning, and I played out a double E tuning to get that kind of, it was almost like a pedal steel, great sound on that second string when you open it up like that. So that's, I'll show you really quick. But you can also get it on the number two. The number two sounds good too. So let me get an E really quick here. Just take a second. Get all the spikes done. Love that second string on this thing. It sounds great. So that's what it is. It's this one right here.
That's the clawgrass, the clawgrass banjo.
Yeah, either one will work. I just happened to do it on the original one that Greg and Janet sent me.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for doing this. This was really fun. This was really great hearing you talk about your how you developed your style and how other people can help to develop their own style and become better players.
Well, I'm out there, clawgrass.com, and got a new Wikipedia page. I don't know how that. I have a friend of mine that developed it out, and I'm starting to do a lot of teaching again. FaceTime and Zoom are great. Skype buffers a little bit, but there's ways around that. And if anybody wants to do some lessons or clean up their style a little bit or learn some licks or anything for advanced players, I'd be happy to show you how to do it.
Your website, Mark, I think is clawgrassbanjo.com. Is that correct?
Yes, clawgrass.com.
Clawgrass.com. That needs to be updated on Wikipedia.
Yes,
I think.
it's like Amway. It's a way of life.
Yeah, I know. The internet sometimes isn't friendly to us. Do you know what I mean? It's the way it goes. But yeah, so thank you to everybody for tuning in. And it's been a real pleasure having you, Mark. And I hope that we get through this crazy time that we're in and we get to see you sometime soon as possible. So.
During live. Thank you, Greg and Janet. Thank you guys for doing this. And yeah, we'll all get through this together.
Oh, yeah.
We've been through a lot worse in this country. We can do this.
Absolutely. We got this. So everybody out there, take care. Tune in next week. We'll be sending out emails and stuff for the next episode. And thank you all for joining us.
And next week, we're featuring Tony Trischka.
All right.
See, I was going to keep that secret for now, but well done.
Okay.
All right, guys.
I'm not good with
Thank you so
secrets.
much.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
All right. See you.